She spoke the truth about you when no one was listening. And before you heard this message, something was already shifting in the unseen. There was a moment you were never meant to witness. A room you were not in. A conversation that happened when your name was spoken softly, then sharply, then honestly. And what she said about you, when no one was listening, cut deeper than you realize. Pause. Breathe. Because this message has found you on purpose. You have felt it already, haven't you? That strange heaviness. The sense that something was said, something was revealed, something was exposed behind your back. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself not to care. But your spirit knew. Your soul reacted before your mind ever could. This is not coincidence. There are words that were released about you in secret, words that carried truth, pain, and intention. Some were spoken in frustration. Some were spoken in confession. Some were spoken with a trembling voice that surprised even her. And yes, it hurt. Not because they were lies, but because they touched places you keep hidden even from yourself. You are not weak for feeling this. You are not foolish for being affected. You are human and divinely protected. Listen carefully now. What was said about you did not destroy you. It activated something. There are conversations that heaven allows not to harm you, but to expose what must be healed, strengthened, or separated. And this was one of them. What she spoke when she thought no one was listening revealed more than her opinion. It revealed a crossroads. She spoke about your patience, your silence, your tendency to carry more than you show. She questioned your worth, and in the same breath admitted she could never do what you do. She named your flaws, and unknowingly confessed her dependence on your strength. This contradiction is important. Because when people speak the truth in private, it often comes mixed with pain they don't know how to process. And when that pain touches someone chosen, it feels like betrayal, even when it's wrapped in honesty. You didn't imagine the shift afterward. You didn't imagine the distance. You didn't imagine the sudden change in energy. Something was released the moment your name left her lips. But here is what you must understand before you allow that pain to shape you. No word spoken in secret has authority over your destiny. Not one. There are voices that criticize because they cannot control. Voices that confess because they cannot forget. Voices that expose truth because they are tired of pretending. Her words were not the final verdict. They were a signal. A signal that your presence matters more than you know. A signal that your silence has been louder than arguments. A signal that your life has stirred something unresolved in her spirit. That is why it hurt. Truth spoken without love always wounds, but it also reveals. And what was revealed is this: you have outgrown a place where you were once tolerated, explained, or misunderstood. This is where many people make a mistake. They try to confront. They try to explain. They try to defend themselves to people who already spoke their piece. Do not do this. There is a divine response that does not involve words. It involves elevation. When heaven hears what is spoken against you, or about you, when you are absent, it does not rush to correct the speaker. It begins to reposition the listener. You. That conversation you never heard fully. It marked the end of a season you were never meant to stay in. That pain you feel now? It is the pressure of transition, not rejection. And yes, you may still be wondering why it had to be her. Why someone you trusted? Why someone close enough to know your struggles? Why someone whose voice still echoes in your mind? That question matters. Because the next truth is heavier. Some people are allowed to see your vulnerability not to protect it, but to reveal when it's time for you to rise beyond it. If this message is touching you, don't rush past it. Stay with it. Let it speak to you. And if your spirit feels stirred, grounded, or strangely calm even in the ache, quietly support this message so it reaches others who are standing in the same invisible fire. Because what comes next will explain why her words hurt so deeply, and why they were never meant to stop you, but to separate you. And in the next moment, you will understand something you were never supposed to hear, but were always meant to know. You didn't just feel hurt because of what was said. You felt shaken because of who said it. That is the layer most people never understand. When words come from strangers, they bruise the surface. When words come from someone who knew your quiet moments, your effort, your sacrifices, they pierce deeper. They reach places guarded by hope, not pride. And that is why your spirit reacted before your logic could explain it. You replayed imagined sentences in your mind. You wondered which parts were true. You questioned whether you had missed signs, tones, pauses. This inner unraveling was not weakness. It was discernment awakening. Listen carefully now. There are moments when truth spoken about you is not meant for your ears, but for your alignment. Heaven does not always let you hear the words. Instead, it lets you feel their weight so you can move accordingly. What she said was not random. It was not careless. It was released at a precise moment because something in you was about to change. You see, when a person speaks honestly about you in private, they unknowingly reveal their position in your life. Words spoken behind closed doors often declare whether someone can walk with you into your next season, or whether they must remain in the last one. And her words placed her behind you. That realization hurts more than the words themselves. Because you didn't just lose comfort. You lost familiarity. You lost the illusion that everyone who understands you is meant to stay close to you. This is where many chosen ones struggle. You are naturally reflective. You look inward before accusing outward. So when pain comes, you ask, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? That self-awareness is a gift, but it becomes a trap when you turn it into self-blame. Hear this clearly. Not every truth spoken about you is a correction. Some truths are confirmations that you have reached the edge of tolerance in someone else's spirit. Your growth exposed something she wasn't ready to face. Your steadiness reminded her of her instability. Your restraint highlighted her restlessness. Your quiet endurance mirrored the battles she avoids. So when she spoke, it sounded like honesty, but it carried projection. That is why it hurt and confused you. Part of you recognized the truth. Another part of you sensed distortion. Both can exist at the same time. There are words that are partially true but spiritually misaligned. They land heavy because they mix insight with unresolved emotion. And when those words reach someone like you, someone who listens deeply, they linger longer than they should. This is where you must be careful. Do not carry words that were never meant to shape your identity. The pain you feel is not an invitation to shrink. It is an invitation to clarify. Clarify what you accept. Clarify what you release. Clarify who still has access to your inner world. You were never meant to be understood by everyone who knows you. Some people are allowed to observe your journey, not interpret it. And something else is happening beneath the surface. That conversation didn't just affect you, it exposed her. When someone speaks truth mixed with hurt, heaven listens closely. Not to punish, but to decide proximity. Because the next phase of your life requires voices that speak about you with honor even when you are absent. This is why you felt a subtle withdrawal. Why communication feels thinner. Why silence feels louder than words. It's not punishment. It's protection. There is a reason you weren't meant to hear the exact words. If you had, you might have confronted instead of ascending. You might have defended instead of detaching. You might have stayed emotionally tethered to a place you are meant to outgrow. Heaven chose peace over explanation for you. And yes, part of you still wants clarity. Still wants closure. Still wants to know exactly what was said. But closure does not always come through answers. Sometimes it comes through distance. You are being trained right now to trust movement over meaning. To trust elevation over validation. To trust that when truth hurts, it is often because it has reached the end of its usefulness in your life. Stay with this message. Let it settle. And if your heart feels seen in this moment, quietly align with it, because others need this clarity too, and your support carries weight in unseen ways. Because what comes next will reveal why this conversation triggered a deeper spiritual response. Why your sleep, focus, or emotions shifted afterward. And how this pain is actually preparing you for a revelation that will change the way you see people forever. The next truth will not just explain the hurt. It will expose the hidden assignment behind it. After that conversation, spoken without your presence, something subtle but undeniable changed inside you. You may not have noticed it immediately. It didn't arrive loudly. It arrived as restlessness. Your thoughts began to wander at night. Your spirit felt alert even when your body was tired. Moments that once felt neutral now felt heavy. This is important. When words are spoken about you in private, they don't just travel through air. They move through intention. And intention carries spiritual weight. Especially when it involves someone who once had access to your inner world. What you felt afterward was not anxiety. It was activation. Your discernment sharpened. Your tolerance lowered. Your intuition began speaking louder than your emotions. You started noticing things you once overlooked. Small inconsistencies. Shifts in tone. Delayed responses. Energy that didn't match words. This wasn't suspicion. It was awareness awakening. Here is a truth few are told. When someone speaks honestly about you behind closed doors, heaven often allows it because your spirit is ready to outgrow interpretation. You are being trained to stop needing confirmation from people who can't walk where you're going. That conversation marked the moment your inner authority began to rise. Before this, you second-guessed yourself. You gave people the benefit of the doubt. You softened your boundaries to preserve peace. But now, something in you is different. You are less willing to over-explain, less eager to prove your intentions, less dependent on being understood. That is not coldness. That is clarity. And clarity often feels lonely at first. This is where the pain deepened, not because of her words, but because of what followed. The quiet realization that the connection you valued no longer felt safe in the same way. You felt it in pauses, in the absence of warmth, in the way conversation stayed surface level. This shift wasn't imagined. When someone speaks a truth about you that they were never meant to carry, the spiritual bond changes. Something becomes misaligned. And alignment matters more than history. You may have asked yourself, should I confront this? Should I ask what was said? No. Not because you are afraid, but because you are being taught a higher response. There are moments when silence is not avoidance. It is discernment choosing dignity. You don't chase conversations that required secrecy to exist. You don't reopen doors that heaven quietly closed for your protection. What hurt you was not criticism. It was exposure without covering. And that kind of exposure tells you everything you need to know. Now listen carefully. The reason this experience feels so intense is because it is connected to your next assignment. You are entering a season where who speaks about you matters more than who speaks to you. Your name carries weight now. That's why it was discussed when you weren't there. That's why the conversation had emotion behind it. That's why it left a residue in your spirit. You are no longer invisible in the way you once were. And visibility always attracts commentary. Some will speak in admiration, some in confusion, some in frustration. But only those aligned with your future will speak with honor when you are absent. This is the filter being applied right now. And here is the hardest truth. The pain you felt was not betrayal, it was release. Release from emotional dependency. Release from needing approval. Release from carrying responsibility for someone else's comfort. She said what she said because she reached the limit of what she could process about you. You reached the beginning of something greater. That difference matters. If you feel a quiet strength rising as you listen, that is no accident. Your spirit recognizes truth even when it stings. And if this message is steadying you, anchoring you, subtly changing how you see the past, support it gently so it reaches others standing at the same threshold. Because the next thing you must understand is this. Not everyone who tells the truth about you is meant to stay connected to you. Some people speak truth as a farewell, not a bridge. And what comes next will show you exactly how to recognize who can walk with you forward, who must remain a chapter, and why this separation is about to open doors you never expected. What you are stepping into will require discernment sharper than pain, and you are about to receive it. There is something sacred happening in you now, and it did not begin with her words, it was revealed by them. You are standing at a threshold where emotional attachment is being replaced with spiritual authority. That transition always feels like loss before it feels like power. This is why the memory still surfaces. Not because you are meant to revisit the pain, but because you are meant to reclaim yourself from it. When someone speaks truth about you without you present, heaven watches two things closely: the motive of the speaker and the response of the one spoken about. You were never meant to respond outwardly. Your response was inward, and that is why it mattered. Instead of collapsing, you recalibrated. Instead of confronting, you became quieter. Instead of defending your name, you strengthened your spirit. That response disqualified certain people from your next season without you ever lifting a hand. And now, discernment is no longer optional for you, it is required. You are entering a phase where emotional generosity must be paired with spiritual boundaries. Where access to you becomes earned, not assumed. Where familiarity no longer grants influence. This is why you feel more selective lately. You pause before sharing. You listen more than you speak. You sense intention behind words. This is not guardedness. This is wisdom maturing. And here is the truth that will steady you. The words that hurt you did not weaken your calling, they clarified it. You are not meant to be surrounded by many voices. You are meant to be surrounded by aligned ones. And alignment reveals itself most clearly when you are not in the room. That conversation did you a favor you couldn't have orchestrated yourself. It showed you who speaks carefully about you. Who speaks casually. Who speaks emotionally. Who speaks with honor. You didn't need to hear the details, your spirit already processed the data. This is why heaven is now inviting you into deeper consistency. Consistency in how you show up. Consistency in what you tolerate. Consistency in where you invest your emotional energy. And as you walk forward, support matters. Not loud support. Not performative loyalty. But quiet alignment. There are those who walk this path with you, listening, growing, strengthening their discernment alongside yours. And when you choose to support messages like this, whether through gentle engagement, presence, or even something like super thanks, you are not buying favor. You are affirming alignment. Super thanks are simply a way to say, "This spoke to me. Keep going." Membership is for those who feel called to walk deeper. Receiving messages reserved for those ready for clarity, strength, and spiritual grounding beyond the surface. There is no pressure here. Only invitation. Because your journey is no longer about convincing others, it's about staying anchored while elevation happens quietly. And elevation is happening. You may not see it yet, but doors are adjusting. Conversations are shifting. Opportunities are aligning around the version of you that no longer over-explains or overextends. The pain you felt was a threshold pain. It hurt because you crossed from being emotionally available to being spiritually discerning. That is a one-way crossing. You will not be able to unsee what you now see. You will not be able to tolerate what you now recognize. You will not be able to return to smaller versions of yourself. And this is where many feel fear. Because separation often comes before confirmation. You may wonder if you did the right thing by staying silent. If you should have spoken up. If distance was truly necessary. Listen closely. Peace is confirmation. If your spirit feels calmer, even with unanswered questions, you chose correctly. Heaven does not reward confrontation, it rewards alignment. And alignment is why this message is reaching you in sequence, step by step. You are being prepared not just to understand people, but to outgrow their opinions. Stay present. Stay grounded. And if this message is strengthening you, anchoring you, or helping you release what no longer fits, quietly support it in the way that feels right to you. Your alignment fuels clarity far beyond this moment. Because what comes next will reveal the final truth. Why her words were allowed to surface now. Why this separation is protecting you from something unseen. And how the silence that followed is about to speak louder than anything ever said. The next revelation will change how you interpret pain forever. Now listen, because this is where everything comes together. The silence that followed her words was not emptiness. It was instruction. When heaven removes noise, it is never to punish you, it is to sharpen you. And what you have been walking through was not abandonment, confusion, or loss. It was preparation for a level of clarity you could not access before. Here is the truth you were never told. Some conversations are allowed to happen without you because if you heard them, you might have stayed emotionally entangled with people you were meant to outgrow. You might have tried to repair what was already complete. You might have lowered yourself to be understood instead of rising to be aligned. Heaven protected you from that. That is why you were spared the details. That is why you were given the feeling instead of the facts. That is why your spirit processed the truth faster than your mind. You were trusted with discernment because you were ready for authority. And now, this is the moment most people miss. What she said did not define you. It released you. Released you from needing permission to become who you are becoming. Released you from carrying emotional weight that was never yours. Released you from environments where your growth made others uncomfortable. The pain was not meant to follow you. It was meant to pass through you. This is why, even now, something feels lighter. You may still feel echoes of sadness, but not confusion. You may still remember the hurt, but not attachment. You may still care, but you no longer ache. That is healing in real time. And now comes the final shift. You are being repositioned into a season where your presence will be felt even when you say nothing. Where your absence will speak louder than explanations. Where people will reconsider how they spoke about you after you are no longer available. This is not revenge. This is reverence. When someone realizes too late that they misjudged access to you, heaven does not rush you back into their reach. It lets the lesson mature. You are not called to be remembered fondly by everyone. You are called to be respected by alignment. That is why your heart had to be refined. That is why the truth had to hurt. That is why you were strong enough to endure it without reacting. Because what is opening now requires emotional maturity, spiritual authority, and inner stillness. And you carry all three. From this moment forward, you will notice something new. People will choose their words more carefully around you. Energy will shift when you enter a room. Conversations will pause before your name is spoken. Not because you demanded it, but because your spirit now carries weight. You have crossed from being discussed to being considered. And here is the final truth, receive it slowly. Not everyone who speaks truth about you deserves continued access to you. Truth does not equal alignment. Honesty does not equal safety. Familiarity does not equal permission. You are allowed to move forward without explanation. You are allowed to protect your peace without guilt. You are allowed to let silence finish what words never could. If you feel stronger now than when this message began, that is confirmation. If something inside you has settled, that is alignment. And if you sense that this moment marks an ending and a beginning, you are correct. Stay connected to what nourishes your discernment. Walk with voices that honor you even when you are unseen. And if this message anchored you, strengthened you, or spoke what you could not put into words, carry it forward in the way that feels right to you. Because this was never just about what she said. It was about who you are becoming. And the next time your name is spoken in a room you are not in, the tone will be different. Because you are different now.